Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Reflections on the New Market Landscape for Market and Competitive Intelligence Platforms. This webinar is hosted by M&CI, which is a highly regarded company with a rich history of over 2 decades of experience in market and competitive intelligence. With its AI-assisted tools, M&CI enables businesses globally to make informed strategic decisions and gain competitive advantages. Leading the session will be Jesper Mattel, the CEO of M&CI, and joining him is Christian Bjerser, CEO of M&CI Inc. We're privileged to have their expertise and insights today. Without further ado, I will now pass the control over to our presenters.
Thank you, Malika, and welcome everyone to this webinar today that I will be co-hosting with Christian. Hello, Christian.
Hi, Jesper.
How are you today?
Happy to be here with you.
We're going to talk about the new market and competitive intelligence landscape, and I think there are some good reasons for doing that. Some of the reflections and observations that we will be talking about is number one, that market intelligence is hot, which may come as a surprise to some of you. We've been working with this for 20 years, but suddenly market intelligence is on everyone's agenda. So that's a clear observation that we've made, and we'll be having some reflections on that. The second thing that we'll be talking about is market segmentation and vendor positioning. It's interesting to see that there are so many different reports and evaluations coming out now about market and competitive intelligence tools. So we're still very software and platform focused. And we've made some interesting observations there as well that we will be sharing with you. And then finally, we'll end off with some of our thoughts on where we see the future market of M&CI tools going. So I think this looks like a good discussion, or what do you think, Christian?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent agenda. I think it's a very sort of natural 3 steps to talk about. But honestly, Jesper, I do want to ask you, and I know we're going to go into it, but market intelligence, hasn't market intelligence been hot for a very, very, very long time?
Yeah, it has been. It has been for me, at least.
Yeah. Now it's hot. Now it's hot. What is the difference this time? Or what makes it hot?
What makes it super hot? Yeah. No, I think, I mean, there's one main reason for this. Obviously, I think the need for market and competitive intelligence is much, much greater now. From being something that perhaps a few obscure analysts have been working with, suddenly this is important for everyone in organizations. And I think the reason for this is, from a CI perspective, is really 2 things. One, of course, that there is so much information out there, and it's constantly growing. So you need some sort of tool to help you just manage and handle that. And the second thing is the volatility. Things are happening so fast as well. So I think those things mean that you need some sort of tool to help you deal with all this information that's surrounding it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. That is an observation. I would, though, maybe challenge that a bit in saying that we've been at this stage for quite some time. We've had a volatile situation and we've had information overload, and the need for those decisions have been there. But I feel that there might be other things at play here now as well. So your take on that?
Yeah, no, I think also, I mean, obviously, the macroeconomics that are going on. Things have been quite stable in the past. You've known which competitors you want to monitor, and the markets have been quite predictable in that sense. But all these disruptions that are going on, not just on the market, but maybe even more specifically in the technology area as well. There are things happening in technology that right now that we could only dream about for 10 years ago. I think that's also putting the finger on this market now. So I think that's clear. There is sort of a need, and it's interesting to see that there are so many third-party companies that are also seeing this. IT analyst companies. It's not just we who are in the market and competitive intelligence space, but we have this recent Forrester report that came out just a couple of weeks ago, and they have interesting observations also. They are specifically mentioning ChatGPT and AI, and everyone knows this, but that has been an important trigger, I think.
No, I think that's one of those things that might be the extra hot sauce coming in right now, is that I think everyone has seen a need, like the last slide you showed. We have this need, and we have this situation, we have this market, we have all of those kind of things, and we understand that we need these tools, but suddenly we got a little bit of a technology leap here. And that I think is indeed something that has been picked up not only within the industry, but also quite a lot outside it. You mentioned the Forrester report here. Obviously,
and not just Forrester. I mean, there are other companies that have also produced reports in the last couple of months. Gartner is also focusing on this and see this as a major trend in the next couple of years. So it's not just one or two, but this is something that we see across the board. I think the interest in CI.
I think it's kind of interesting, the two companies that you bring up here. I mean, these are not. There's been reports done by maybe more niched companies in the past, but these are heavy hitters when it comes to analyzing technology. You might disagree, but I think that just the fact that these kind of also adds to the hotness of the
you're right.
Topic, and that they are actually engaging now.
No, and both Forrester and Gartner are, as you say, very respectable companies. They have a lot of impact. Companies listen to what they have to say about the IT market. So I agree. Just the fact that they are putting the magnifying glass on us is good, not just for us, but for everyone that are in this industry. Both vendors, but also buyers and users will benefit from this tremendously, I think.
So maybe the end user has a little easier time to justify and argue for the need of intelligence tools when they're able to refer to Gartner or Forrester or any other of those companies that are recognized, as you say, by organizations sort of generally.
No, and I think what we've been struggling with for the last couple of years is just defining what it is we do, and sort of creating a common definition in that. And I think the way that Forrester and Gartner do it makes it easier for people to say we are doing this. This is the kind of tool that we are looking for. And I will come back to this, but I remember that also just 10 years ago, there were a lot of companies calling themselves competitive intelligence software, who in our world maybe weren't really competitive intelligence software, but it was hard to be compared to some of these.
Well, we had the good old SharePoint days where virtually everything could be built on SharePoint. Everything from intelligence systems to basically handling a moon landing or something. We missed those days.
There were so many possibilities.
No, we don't miss those days at all.
No, but and I think we'll come back to this as well, but there's a little bit of a danger that now people are talking about AI as if AI can solve any problem in the world. And we are strong proponents of AI, but again, I think it's careful. You have to be careful not to sort of exaggerate things.
Be wary the buzzwords.
Yes, yes. So in this equation, how can market and competitive intelligence help if you have these needs and there's so much change? And what really is market and competitive intelligence?
I think it's a question of looking at, again, you talk about these the definitions, I think I like this slide because it is a little bit of an overview, gives you a little bit of a helicopter perspective on what intelligence is. Market and competitive intelligence, but it basically comes down to all of these to these 3 points. I mean, looking at that enhancement of position, maximizing growth and profitability, and reduce the risk of surprise. I mean, those are classic things that market and competitive intelligence occupy itself with. And if we tie that back into what you had on your slide with that quick moving, fast moving environments, and everything is happening so fast, you quickly start seeing that this becomes very difficult to do without some sort of technical support. But if we look at this, we talk about where are the market and competitor analysis, those classic things, but we are also talking about the sales support, early warning, the innovation, strategic planning, the risk minimization. This is a comprehensive package that we need to have in place to be able to call ourselves a market and competitive intelligence system, basically.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I think I mean we sometimes talk about that marketing and M&CI, as we call it, consists of 2 parts. You have sort of the more tactical part, which is maybe the top circles here, and then you have more the strategic intelligence, which is maybe the bottom 3 circles here. And I think that's an important point to make, that not everyone has both of these, so that you can have a tool that does both tactical and strategic intelligence.
And I think it's a question also that it becomes a little bit hard focusing on just one of them because they feed off each other so much.
Exactly.
I mean, if you look at the strategic parts, that what goes into the strategic process is often something, or often flows of information that sort of emanate in the tactical area, and then we lift them up to get that overview of of the world.
Yep, I agree. All right, so moving on then, we talked a bit about definitions, and these are Gartner and Forrester's definitions that they are using. They are I find them quite similar in a sense that, I mean, you collect internal, external information, you bring it together, analyze it, and then send it out to the right target groups, which is fine. I don't really have anything against any of these definitions, and I think it's hard for us as a specific vendor to really challenge these, because if Gartner or Forrester says that something is, this is the definition, then that will be the market, like it or not. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that, and that's why I'm really happy that these are actually good definitions. So it would have been a difficult situation if I don't think they would have come up with something that was crazy in any shape or form. But this is actually good. I think it's interesting to look at them though. I think that when you look at the Gartner definition, it is a little or actually, let's look at Forrester's definition. I think they're actually taking a pretty big step into sort of focusing on a specific technology here. Mm-hmm. They're basically saying that AI is a part of an intelligence system. They say AI-based solutions that collect. Gartner is not that kind of, doesn't take that as far. I know that they of course have thoughts on AI as well, but they don't put that in the actual definition itself the way Forrester does. And I think this also goes to show, again, going back to the hotness of the topic of AI, yeah, it is AI maybe to a large extent that is moving the hotness of this this industry right now. And Forrester's definition is kind of a proof of that.
So that's what we're going to talk about, and this is sort of what's hot. I'm also glad to see that Gartner and Forrester are defining this market and helping us to do that. Some of the key findings then, these are some of the key findings that Gartner has had. And we've touched upon the first one already, is that there is a big need and an opportunity in this case for tools to support all this new dynamic world with all this change going on and all this information. So I think that's number one, that both of these have seen in the market. Number two, which I think is interesting, is that Gartner says that this is not just something for big multinationals, as was perhaps the case a couple of years ago. And we can see this as well. It's enterprises of all sizes that have these issues and that are willing to invest in tools to help them with these challenges. I don't know your thoughts on that, Christian. I mean,
I think that is some kind of, I think that's maybe a well-known truth for us, that this is the case. If we look at our customer base, there's not necessarily a correlation between how much you invest in market and CI systems compared to your size. Of course, I mean, there are some general, if you have a large organization, it goes to show, of course, that you have to put more investments into it just to get a system that caters for that. But I think you might be surprised to see certain companies that are much smaller that are actually investing heavily into this. I would echo this, and I would say that it is absolutely so that just because you are a smaller company, you're not sort of immune to the need of intelligence, and maybe quite the opposite.
No, and even within companies, I would argue this as well. I mean, when we were at Ericsson back in the days, this was CI was a small team of 520 people doing this, but I feel that even within companies, it has grown, and there are more people that have to have CI to make good decisions. So it has to be spread across enterprises as well.
Fully agree, and I think that what we see, I mean, our platform has always supported the delegation and distribution of responsibility. We talk a lot about intelligent communities, and I think we see this manifestation of that more and more. You're seeing that you have the central team coordinating the activities, but they're also recognizing that we need to get subject matter experts into the system. They need to be responsible for certain parts of the system. And I think that approach has grown. And the sort of the understanding that is a very effective way of working has grown quite a lot.
Yeah. So those are two key findings that have come up. And then the third one is that this whole vendor landscape of different providers is very fragmented. And as we touched upon in the beginning, can make it quite difficult if you are a buyer to select the right package that suits your specific needs. I think that might still be the case, but we'll see what happens in the future. I think it was even more fragmented 4 or 5 years ago. So we are seeing sort of the outskirts of a market actually being created of different suppliers, but I don't think we're quite there yet. It's still sort of emerging.
Still emerging, but I think that what they put their finger on, that this report was published in January, and so they look at 2022, and even after that, it was published, I think that we've seen steps in that direction that they're talking about the M&A activities, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the signs are there for making this maybe less fragmented going forward, but we'll see. But I still agree that we are in kind of a fragmented state still.
No, and that brings us to maybe the highlight of today's webinar, which is, of course, the very recent, the most recent report that came out, which is the Forrester Wave, where they have evaluated the 14 providers that they feel matter the most in this industry. I think this is perhaps one of the most ambitious and well-researched studies that have been made. They do a good job, Forrester, when they evaluate the different providers, and they actually do a demo, and you have to respond to a number of questions, and everyone is treated the same, and yet there's a time plan, and they have these 24 different criteria that everyone is measured against. And these criteria can, of course, be discussed. These are Forrester's 24 criteria. 14 of them are related to the product, and 10 of them are related to more sort of strategy and vision, and what I would perhaps call the more fluffy side of things. But it's the same for everyone. And then they produce this what they call the Forrester Wave for market and competitive intelligence providers, which consists of 4 waves. You have the challengers in the bottom, and contenders, strong performance, and leaders are perhaps the ones who score a little bit higher. And then they have this matrix where you have strategy at the bottom, and then your current offer, the product, in other words, on the left-hand side there.
Yeah, so so what you're saying, so the left-hand side with the current offering, that would then be more of the features and hard product related
exactly. Yeah.
As opposed to those more softer side strategy things going into the other axis.
Exactly. So, and I would argue that it's easier to measure sort of the current offering. I mean, do you have a search engine that does this and that? Do you have alerts? Do you have dashboards, analysis tools? Whilst the strategy axis has more to do with what's your future vision and mission, and things like that, which is a bit harder to quantify and measure.
Of course, yeah, definitely. Okay. Just a question there, since you're the expert on this report. I noticed there are 2 gray dots compared to white dots. Does that have any significance, or is
I think, and I'm not sure if I would call myself an expert, but I think, I think that the ones that are gray here, for some reason, selected not to participate in the actual evaluation. So this is based on open source information that Forrester has gathered. And then I think the size of the dots is based on market size. So how many customers and what your revenue is, I think, if I remember correctly.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So this is the landscape as Forrester sees it, based on their criteria. Commentelli is of course, we're of course super happy that Commentelli is on here. I think all 14 companies that make it on the wave should be proud, because there are of course other vendors. I think Forrester evaluates, like 50 or 60 different companies before selecting which 14 ones finally appear here. And of course, it's we're super happy to see Commentelli at the top, right, Christian?
Yes. Definitely, and I think that what I am particularly happy with is the high ranking that we have on the offering side. That is kind of a what I think is a receipt to how we how we choose to prioritize features, how we choose to work on certain things. And yeah, I'm very, very, very happy to see that position.
Yeah, and there's not that many that are in front of us in terms of the product. I was also very happy with the 6 different criteria where we were ranked or received the highest score, which was in AI capabilities and visualization and analysis. The paywall, the connectors that we have, our deliverables and templates that they feel that it's easy to use, and the workflow tools that we have with dashboards and things like that. So I think Forrester picked out our strong points. There are perhaps a couple of things that I would be glad to have a debate with them about, but overall, I think they did a better job than last time, I must say.
No, I think this is well thought through, and I think the reason, because that's also interesting. I mean, it's also one thing that you look at scoring and you see you get that, but why are we scoring high in AI capabilities? Why are we the best ones to visualize and analysis support? I think it has to do again with how we view these things. I think we've always worked on the sort of assumption that we want to make the analyst's life better, to be able to be more effective and have that. And we've always talked about analytical support tools. We've always viewed it the fact that we are supporting someone in their decision process. So this means that we're trying our best to have that AI intelligence work with the human intelligence. I usually kind of do the sort of analogy of having a junior analyst at your side that you can dump different tasks on and have them perform very fast and effectively, and then you're presented with that information and that those things in front of you that you then can take forward. I think that is a recipe for success, and I'm pretty happy to see that score made us score so high in these criteria, especially.
Yeah. No, I'm very proud of that as well. And this is something, as you say, that we will definitely continue working on. I think we have just started our AI journey, to be honest.
And asking you a little bit about that, Jesper, because I know you've spent a lot of time digging into the AI question. So one thing that is, I mean, everyone wants AI. Everyone wants that benefit of AI, but behind that are different technologies and different ways. There are a lot of sort of choices you have to make going forward. So could you elaborate a little bit your thoughts on that? Because there are different routes to take here.
Yeah, there definitely is, and this is a technology area that is moving super fast and is super hot. I think there are some companies that go more sort of the proprietary route, where they actually build their own AI algorithms and their own tools. Which is impressive, especially if you sort of have your own resources to do that. Typically, if you have your own proprietary technology, AI technology, that means that it works really well on the content and sources that you control. But perhaps not as well if you have a diverse set of sources and content, where you need something that is a bit more powerful. And I mean, we've chosen the route to work with more open source AI platforms, like of course OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Google AI as well, and to use their algorithms and their machine learning capabilities, and then we take what's there and then we adapt it to our competitive intelligence purposes. I personally feel that that's a better long-term solution, because I think it's hard. I think it's hard for anyone to compete with Microsoft and Google once they put resources and efforts into AI. I think it's going to explode.
I think you're quite right. I think that generally people don't really appreciate how much volume of data needs to go into these activities to produce these algorithms and make them work. I think it's very hard to sort of not see the benefits that these big companies have when it comes to that access to data for training of the algorithms.
Yeah.
So no, I think it's probably going to be something similar to what we've seen in other technology areas, where proprietary technology might be at the disadvantage of sort of the community developed.
And I think proprietary works in the short term because you can get it really customized to your specific needs. But in the long term, I'm not a believer of that. Anything else that sort of surprised you in this compared to last time?
There were a lot of surprises, I would say. I think that not maybe so much in how the participating companies came out in the ranking. I mean, to your point, we disagree with certain things, of course, but overall,
and also I think it's important to remember that these are Forrester's 24 criteria. Yes. There are, of course, a lot of other criteria that you should also consider when buying a system for your organization.
Absolutely, but what I think was interesting is that if you look at, and you brought that up, is the previous way. So we had 12 companies. You can tell, I think, that there's a lot of difference between this one and the previous wave. Not only movements. I think we've kind of been we moved consistently up on the product rating, but we've seen others taking big leaps in all directions.
No, and I think this was in 2019. The market was in an even earlier phase, and even more undefined. So I think it was a harder task to define it back then. But it's still interesting to compare, and it's inevitable that you do that you compare to the last report and what's happened since. And as you say, there are some big changes.
And I think one of the big ones is, of course, you got what we call the levers. We got, out of those 12 companies that were there, 5 of them are no longer there. They're gone. I think we can break this down into to perhaps 3 categories. We got the Gartner talked about acquisitions, mergers and acquisitions, and we have examples of that in the lever category, companies that have been acquired. Then I think we have that might be again the maturity and the ranking of the companies. We've had companies that has kind of had one foot in the CI industry, but maybe another foot in another industry. Like media monitoring and things like that kind of streamlined their approach and basically kind of moved out of the intelligence industry altogether.
So it doesn't mean that they don't exist any longer, but they are not.
It means that they just
in this market.
They're not prioritizing the intelligence market anymore. And then of course you have the sad things about company not basically being divested and not being around anymore for that reason. So the levers they stick out, of course. I mean, compared to before.
And I think DigiMind, Market Logic, Sharper. If you go back to the previous slide, they were the leaders last time. I think that's
it's also not the question of leaving, but the companies in the leading space actually are no longer around in the next report, in the follow-up report. So that is kind of remarkable.
So that's one notable change, that some companies are not on the wave any longer. The other thing is, of course, if some companies leave, then there are also a notable number of newcomers.
Yeah, because we got more. I mean, we got more companies in this one than we had in the last one. And if 5 leaves, then we got to get 7 new ones.
Yeah.
I think this is a reasonable lineup. This one, I think that maybe we were a little bit surprised to see that some companies weren't part of the previous one that we might have expected.
Yeah.
And of course, that could be for various reasons. It doesn't have to be that they were not identified by Forrester. They could have chosen not to participate and things like that. So, and to your point now, as previously, or as you said previously, that Forrester now has actually taken in companies that maybe are not participating in the study itself, but they're then using open source material on them. So I think the newcomers is, I think it's a good reflection of the landscape. Yeah. It's a reasonable pickup of new companies that are included here.
Yeah, no, I don't think there are any names here that surprise us. There may be 1 or 2 names that I was a bit surprised that are not on here. I won't say any names, but there are a couple of other companies that I wouldn't have been surprised to find here either, actually.
But that's the case. I mean, it's always going to be that kind of, and also you got criteria for how to get in and things like that. So no, I agree. There could be some more, but overall, I'm kind of those are reasonable newcomers.
Yeah. And then you have a couple of movers as well, and by movers we mean companies that have moved from one wave to another. So we have Northern Light and Crayon, who were leaders in the last wave, who are now still strong performers, but they have moved. And then we have maybe the biggest move of all is Embrain and White Narrow, who were contenders a couple of years ago, but have now moved up to be leaders in this new wave. And I think this is interesting because it really, again, illustrates how fast things are moving in this business.
Yeah.
And I think that's worthwhile pointing out.
No, and I think you're quite right about that. It is fast moving. I think it's also a question of maybe doing a little bit of an adjustment. Like you said, it's more defined this time around. The definitions are clearer. You could see some companies that drop a bit might do that because they have a narrower focus. Yeah. Than being that completer platform that now Forrester is asking for in their definition.
Yes.
And then it makes sense that you're kind of moving out of the leader space. And others could be moving in for other reasons. I mean, like you said, there are different criteria here. There are the product oriented, and then you got the strategy or oriented, and it's a combination of what you're basically providing.
Yeah, but do you see that as well, that even within the market and competitive intelligence space, which is in itself not a huge pond, do you see sort of that it's splitting up as well into different subsectors?
I do. I think that, and I think that again, like I'm talking about reflections from the last one, it didn't really sit maybe perfectly on the map, because again, I thought there was a much more of a issue with comparing apples and pears, basically, which might be due to the definition. You can have, and we talked about this in separate webinars, what is a complete CI system? Yep. And that has to contain certain components. And if you're only focused on one of those components, then if you're looking at maybe just sales enablement, you could excel in that area, but you're not producing a complete CI system. You're not looking at that tactical as well as strategical parts of it, which means that you really can't, in my book, get a top rating if you are only focusing on a niche part of the need. And I think that is a major adjustment that was done in this report compared to the old one. Yeah. So I'm quite happy to see that definition is taking more place and also reflecting in the scoring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exciting times. And again, I think this is good for all the vendors. a big thanks to Forrester for putting the light on this.
It's an immense effort, and I think it's exactly what is needed to do this, because as long as I think we've been in the industry, there's been always produced on a vendor level these kind of guides to help the end user pick a system. And really, it's better that we get kind of a sort of more objective scoring, that we get these third-party companies in to help out in that in that way. Now we know if you have a need, you know now you know the players, and you can go in and look at the overview of their strengths and sort of more weak points. And then, of course, it's always going to be, what are your needs? It could very well be that a contender is the one that provides the best fit for you, and not necessarily a leader.
Exactly.
But at least this time, you know who the contenders are, and you know who the leaders are, and you know who the performers are. So you at least you got a list to work on.
Yeah, I agree. We just received a question here from one of the attendees, and maybe you can elaborate a bit on that, Christian. In what ways would you say that Commentelli is a complete CI platform, and what is a complete CI platform?
Well, that's we got an entire webinar on that one, actually. But so you got to take into account certain pieces here. You generally talk about, you have to have that general monitoring skills. You have to have that ability to scan your environment and find information in an automated fashion and bring that information in. And that doesn't really only put you in like a media monitoring space. It has to do with other sources as well, but getting that effectively in. Now, once you have that, you need to be able to manage that intelligence. So it's not that you just can put it in a pile, because or in a SharePoint folder, to go back to how things used to be, and in some cases already are. Because then you won't be able to work it. It's inaccessible, even if you're effectively getting it in. So that's another component. So those two things are very important for creating a space or a platform for your system. And then you can move on to the fun things. Then you look at the analytical support tools, the early warning capabilities, basically making sense of this information. And that's also where AI comes into all of these. But that's maybe where AI sticks out and produces the most kind of sort of shiny activities, helping the analyst making sense of stuff. And then that takes you kind of to the last stage, or the fourth pillar, is that insight creation, the human intelligence, supporting the human intelligence to cooperate on creating those insights. So if you don't have all of those four, then you really don't have a complete CI system. I would say then you're more on a niche level system.
No, so to summarize that, I'd say we talk about sort of as a CI, complete CI system, you should be able to monitor and discover those two things. Is what it should enable you to
exactly do. That takes those kind of four pillars and breaking them up into two sections. Monitor, find it. Monitor and then discover. And then you produce your insights, basically.
Great, thanks for that. So finalizing or coming to the end here, talking about, I mean, now we have these vendors, they are segmented in different parts, the market is hot. What do we see sort of in terms of the future direction for M&CI tools?
Yeah, and there Gartner gives us a little bit of an advice.
Yeah, and I think we all agree with this. We've talked about the first one already. It's a growing market. It's still fragmented. It will continue to grow. I'm sure that there will be more consolidation in this space as well. I like to use the reference to where business intelligence tools were about 15, 20 years ago and where they are today. 15, 20 years ago, it was hard to define what a business intelligence tool was, and there were many local companies. And today you have basically Microsoft Power BI and Tableau and maybe a couple of others, but a few big ones. And I wouldn't be surprised if the M&CI market goes in a similar direction.
No, I think I agree with that. It's showing a similar pattern, albeit moving slower, but for various reasons. It is a complex area. We're talking a lot about qualitative information that is more difficult to or used to be more difficult to handle in a kind of this automated fashion as you could do with the quantitative information for many years. But now we're moving to where technology is taking a step, and that's again to their points here. When they talk about the continuous automation, and they also of course Gartner mentioning AI and NLP technologies facilitating this move.
Gartner mentions continued digitization, automation, which I think is pretty self-evident that will happen, like it or not. They also mention here, it wasn't maybe in their definition, but here they actually mention AI as well.
They do.
I think that's also pretty evident, and I think this is maybe, as you said, I liked it when you called it the super hot sauce. But that's really what's igniting this market, and I think we've only scratched the surface here. There's so much going to happen here.
I mean, just looking at our own roadmap, there's so many interesting and sort of groundbreaking things that will be introduced even in the short run. So it's definitely going to be exciting.
And then the last one, external investments. I think investors are starting to find this market. And again, M&A activities will probably increase. I think there is a need for more resources to be able to do some of the things in here as well. So that's something I definitely would expect.
Yeah, I think so. You're right. I mean, and it's also the more defined the market is, the easier it is also for external investments to understand it and actually see where there are investment opportunities.
Yeah. Great. Well, that brings our little session to the end. Again, hopefully we have talked a bit about the hot market, the new landscape with the different providers, the Forrester report, a bit of our thoughts on where the market is going. So hopefully that gives you a flavor of our thoughts and our reflections and observations. If there are any questions, please feel free to use the chat and type them in. While we're waiting, I actually have a little question for you, Christian. We talked about BI a lot and AI and of course CI and MI and there's so many acronyms in this space and buzzwords and things like that. But one word that came to my mind was the old knowledge management area. How do you sort of see sort of knowledge management, which is typically more about, you know, internal subject matter experts? Do you see that converging in any way to M&CI?
Yeah, you mean getting a sort of a revival or whatnot? I don't think that knowledge management has ever been like completely dead in that sense. The thing about it is that I kind of look at it this way, that a full complete CI or market intelligence system always has a very large KM or knowledge management component because it needs to. You can't. We talked about that intelligence management part of the system. It needs to make sure that you can sort information and deliver information to the right person at the right time, which basically is kind of a knowledge management system. What it does. So if you have a CI system, you basically have a knowledge management system. Now the opposite is not true. Because you lack the analytical capability, the early warning capabilities in a traditional knowledge management system that you do have in the CI platform. But it's a natural expansion if you would look at it that way. So if you are in if you have and we've seen this with certain customers that are actually finding that, okay, and that often comes from IT, that look, this system that that the analyst team is using is actually that's a knowledge management system built in. And then you start seeing that it moves into usage areas that we did not, so that was not the initial requirement of the purchase of the system, but they recognize that they have the capabilities at their fingertips and start using it that way. So yeah, I think it's I think we might see more of that. It's going to be interesting to see if there are any movements in that direction going forward on a broader scale.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's just interesting to see when we're talking about buzzwords, some things are more popular at one point in time, and then perhaps they mature, and then they perhaps integrate into something else, and it's interesting to see. But I completely agree with that. Final question I have is we talked about this in the beginning, that the need for market and CI tools is growing, and this is of course driven by buyers. But you work a lot with our customers. Do you see any types of customers emerging, that customers are looking for specific types of solutions, or any sort of observations from the field there?
Yeah, I think it's. I think I see a pretty big shift. I think it's. And again, it has to do with the development of analytical capabilities to a large extent, that they're becoming so much better. Previously, I would say that a lot of customers were focusing on that monitoring side, and bringing that information in, getting that structure of it, adding benefits to the processes to a certain extent, but now it's more sort of, I would maybe exploding is a bit of an exaggeration, but there is a lot more focus on the discovery side now. I think I would say that we are seeing much more, because it is becoming more easy to use, easy to work with these features, and the benefits they are providing are substantial, and they're imminent. They're not like there's something that you generally need to work several years to establish. They're kind of there from the beginning. So I would say that we are looking at, from a customer perspective, a lot more of a discovery shift going on.
I agree with that as well. In that sort of context, I would also see that there are a lot of customers who maybe more than before, who want to be served like a more of a packaged solution. While in the past you had more specialist functions who liked to do things themselves and make their own connections and searches, etc. But sort of new type of customers want it more easier to use, get started quickly.
That's and again, that's enabled new again by technology. We're seeing kind of a new. From a sort of a vendor perspective, we can say we can serve new groups now, because we require less need for setup and onboarding, and we get it with a general understanding of the needs of the customer. You can have a CI system up and running very, very quickly, producing very, very good results. Then of course we always have the specialized teams that are on a different level when it comes to working with CI, but we are now kind of at a position where we can serve both of them, cater to both the needs.
Great. Well, thank you so much for this little chat. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Always welcome. I think we should do this more often, because I think the industry is changing very quickly. So what we are saying today might not at all be true in a year's time. And I think you have to, the ones that will win the race will be the ones who adapt to customer needs the best.
We might have to do a Christmas edition of this one, depending how fast we move.
Thank you so much, Jesper and Christian, for this insightful presentation. And thanks to all our participants for being here with us today. For any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact us using the email address displayed on the screen. We look forward to the opportunity to connect with you again in the near future. Thank you and bye.
Yeah, thanks so much. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.